Guys, welcome to another episode of R.E.D. It's the everyday podcast for the everyday people. On this particular episode, because of the nature of these stories, we're going to focus on two particular topics. Why reading is important for young children, and what kind of comfort will a child need after particular forms of sexual abuse in the school. Now, one of the things that you'll find in connection with these lineup of stories is that they are among the top worst stories that we've ever covered on this particular show. These stories are gripping, so prepare yourselves because this is going to be one episode that you will never, ever forget. Our first story. Oklahoma School District responds after video shows students licking toes for fundraiser. This is Edmond, Oklahoma. A school district in Oklahoma is doing damage control after a video sent to KOKH showed young students licking other people's toes for a fundraiser. It was surprising, said one student. I didn't think they were going to do all that. I was just shocked. I didn't really have a feeling. I was kind of disgusted. And that I was glad, to say the least, that it was over. He goes on to comment. The controversial moment came as part of the school's wonderful week of fundraising, which was dedicated to raising money for Not Your Average Joe Coffee. The local business employs people with intellectual, developmental, and physical disabilities. However, one of the events in connection with this wonderful week revolved around students licking peanut butter off of other people's toes. The Deer Creek School District released a statement Friday night after the video began circulating that aimed to establish the context of the event and discuss some of the details of the week's programming. The district stressed that the students signed up for events ahead of time and that no official staff or teachers had a role in the Thursday afternoon activity during which the licking occurred. The district said $152,830.38 was raised for Not Your Average Joe Coffee during the week's event. While observers to the controversy applaud the students' philanthropic drive and generosity, they still argue that the optics spawned from the viral video are counterproductive for the district. After the clip was shared by the controversial conservative media watchdog libs of TikTok, Oklahoma State Superintendent Ryan Walters responded in a post on X stating that this matter is under investigation. He says, and I quote, "This is disgusting," he added. "We are cleaning up this filth in Oklahoma schools." You know, the thing that's particularly noteworthy about this story in particular is just how controversial it can really turn out to be. In some matters, we could be looking at a lawsuit. There could be moments or charges of sexual abuse. And the reason why this is brought up is because there are individuals who derive pleasures from this sort of activity. And so if we're teaching children in the school district to protect themselves from such individuals, from such predators, how do you find yourselves allowing students to get involved in such activity in particular that will lead them to believe that certain conduct is okay when you are raising money as a result? Now, this video that you're going to see in connection with this event is indeed disturbing, and we do encourage you guys to be able to just be discreet in connection with viewing it. I personally think that these students may not have come to terms with the fact that they may have been in an inappropriate circumstance. They may have thought it was funny. They may have thought that this was okay, but in no shape, form, or fashion is this okay. And then it begs to question what the parents are doing in connection with what happened surrounding this particular event. There are some individuals who have not spoken up parental-wise, and people are very, very disturbed. In fact, the next source makes mention that this particular coffee shop, this coffee shop that raised this money, or this fundraiser was for this coffee shop, they are having quite a difficult time in connection with the fact that children were allowed to carry out this fundraiser. This is one source that goes on to comment on what took place at the coffee shop, the Not Your Average Joe Coffee Shop. It says here that it's a nonprofit coffee shop that employs students and adults with intellectual, developmental, and physical disabilities across Oklahoma. But as a result of this fundraising event that people have found to be grotesque and disturbing in nature, the coffee shop obviously wasn't present for the event, but they have received awful threats, including violent threats online and over the phone. The coffee shop, in fact, received one phone call telling the employees, "If you hang up on me, you will die because I will kill you." The coffee shop comments, "We're going to do everything to maintain the physical, emotional safety of our employees." That's tantamount. The sad thing about this is that you can see why people are frustrated with this particular fundraising event. There's just certain things that have boundaries. If you allow students to do certain things for money and you don't set the boundaries later on, they're going to fall for these things each and every time. You're really allowing these children to become susceptible to whatever adults want to do, those who have intent to harm them in the long run. We wish you guys all the best in Oklahoma, and we know that for those students who may have been involved in this particular event, or your friends who know of you being involved in this event, reach out to us. Let us know what you think in connection with this story and how you think things should be handled based on what occurred. Now, this next story that came to my desk, it was a request from some commentators on TikTok, persons who are involved in the podcast. And this particular death, first, I just want to express my condolences to the family, the love and care that we have for you guys. We really are just so sorry for the tragic loss of your daughter. But the reason this story is coming up, because this story appeared in 2022, and persons are starting to say, or have been saying, that this particular story has foul play as the motive. Kylie Rodney was last seen alive August the 6th at a party of hundreds of youth at a campground at Prosser Reservoir in Tahoe National Forest, about 165 miles northeast of San Francisco. Her disappearance triggered a huge search by multiple law enforcement agencies over 2 weeks, underwater searches of the reservoir by dive teams. However, they weren't able to turn up anything in connection with her until sometime later. This next story came to fruition. Truckee teen's death ruled accidental. No evidence of injuries in autopsy of Kylie Rodney. The 6-page autopsy of Truckee teen Kylie Rodney says there was no evidence of external or internal injuries. The Truckee, California teen went missing on August the 6th and was found 2 weeks later by a private dive team 55 feet offshore from where she was last seen at a party of hundreds of young people. The autopsy viewed by the Reno Gazette Journal on Thursday indicated she was found in the rear cargo compartment of her submerged 2013 Honda CR-V. The right leg of the descendant was against the pillar of the back seat and resting near the headrest. The remainder of the descendant was behind the seats and not from outside the vehicle, the report said. She was fully clothed in a black bodysuit and green twill pants. On her right foot was a green sneaker, and a matching shoe was found nearby. She had 5 bracelets on her wrist, 3 metal chains around her neck, including one with a constellation-shaped pendant. There is something interesting that's noteworthy in connection with this story. It says here, except for the sneaker being off of the left foot, the coroner wrote, the clothing appears relatively normal in position. There was no evidence of a head trauma or of a sexual assault, and body scans didn't show any internal injuries, according to the coroner. A toxicology report showed positive results for nicotine, caffeine, and delta-9 THC, a molecule of marijuana, according to the autopsy. Additional tissue samples showed ethanol or blood alcohol in her system, but the autopsy said it is possible the alcohol was produced by the body naturally after death. Now, the interesting thing about this story is that persons are saying that there is foul play going on here. They feel as though her death was a cover-up in connection with many things that have gone on in Placer County. And this is where I need you guys' help. I need you guys to be able to tell me what exactly happened at that party and whom was she last seen with. Now, the interesting thing is that the family has a form of closure. So we ask that you be respectful and being able to express yourself. But the interesting thing is that this particular story has come up time and time again in connection with foul play, and that's where it can be really, really concerning for persons, especially those who may have their suspicions. If there are valid reasons for persons to believe that there's foul play involved, I can understand. But if they've done thorough research, the coroner, law enforcement, etc., and they've come to find that there is no foul play involved, then how can we justify or say that there's foul play involved in the loss of this dear, sweet, innocent girl? So we are hoping that you guys may know some additional information and be able to speak out in connection with this story on her behalf. And again, we want to express the heartfelt love that we have for the family, because losing someone in death is indeed tragic. Our next story: the AI wave continues in America. Young people today, they can just find ways to ruin things. They can really limit themselves in connection with life and just the beauty of technology. Here we go. A Beverly Hills middle school is investigating students sharing AI-made nude photos of classmates. Students at a middle school in Beverly Hills, California, used artificial intelligence technology to create fake nude photos of their classmates, according to school administrators. Now the community is grappling with the fallout. School officials at Beverly Vista Middle School were made aware of the AI-generated nude photos of students last week, the district superintendent said in a letter to parents. Beverly Hills Police Lieutenant Andrew Myers mentioned that police responded to a call from the Beverly Hills Unified School District late last week and took a report about the incident. A non-criminal investigation is underway, Myers said. Because the investigation involves juveniles, Myers said no further information could be shared. The Beverly Hills case follows a series of similar incidents involving students creating and sharing AI-generated nude photos of their female classmates at high schools around the world. A New Jersey teen victim spoke out about her experience in January in front of federal lawmakers in Washington, D.C. to advocate for a federal law criminalizing all non-consensual activity, explicit deep fakes. No such federal law exists. Because of the nature or the lack of control in the school system today, and because of the fact that nobody cares about these small problems or these seemingly simple things, these boys, or these persons rather, who are creating these images are going to get away with it. They're going to be able to get away with it if no one steps in to be able to make matters right. There is a source in connection with how you can be able to provide comfort for children, especially victims of abuse. And this source goes on to acknowledge why victims need comfort. So if you are someone who is dealing with this in school, well, what can you do? Well, one, talk to your parent. And you may feel like your parent can't do anything, but that could be the exact opposite. Parents can do a lot more than teens realize in young children. But here are a few ways or things that parents can keep in mind in connection with what their child may need when it comes to this type of abuse, this kind of victimizing. For one, children need to form close, trusting bonds with those who raise and care for them. It's essential to them feeling secure. When you think about a father not being in the home with a young daughter, that leads to what they call daddy issues. And so if this girl doesn't feel loved and cared about, she's going to drop into the arms of a guy who doesn't care about her, who says sweet sayings of nothing. And then she finds herself being in this emotional roller coaster of caring about this guy who doesn't have her best interest at heart because dad wasn't in the home. The second thing to keep in mind is children are vulnerable and sexual abuse is cruel and harmful. When a child is subjected to sexual acts, there is many years that follow physically, emotionally, mentally, that they're just not ready for this particular activity. And so when children are subjected to sex even earlier than need be, or are supposed to be, then that is exactly where the problem starts. You're preparing, or these children are becoming prepared for things that they are not ready for. And that goes for teenagers too. A lot of teenagers get involved emotionally, but they're not ready for what's involved in having a relationship with someone. Here's the third point to keep in mind. Children are not fully developed in their ability to think, to reason, or to recognize and avoid danger. And that is where a parent needs to be more alert and active. It's all too easy for children to be deceived. Now, of course, the context of this source is younger children, but there are teenagers who are just as vulnerable, who are just as susceptible to these types of predators or to these type of peers of theirs, because now their peers are the ones getting involved in these inappropriate things. That is a cause of concern. That is a form of mental manipulation, and parents have to be aware about these things. But if you have a parent who may be a little too busy for you, or they're not able to give you that attention that you need, just keep those 3 points in mind so that you can be able to protect yourself, as it were, from the dangers that lie in the school systems today. Here's our next story in connection with: student stabs another student inside boys' bathroom at Gallus High School in La Puente. We're now going into La Puente, California. A student stabbed another student Monday morning at Gallus High School in La Puente, authorities said. Deputies responded to the school on Nogales Street just before 10 a.m., according to the Roland Unified School District. There was some sort of incident between two students inside the boys' restroom in which one student stabbed the other with a knife. The campus was immediately placed on lockdown to ensure the safety of all staff and students while the situation was assessed. The student immediately received medical attention and the subject was taken into custody. The student was conscious and responsive and is being treated at a local hospital. The sheriff's department said there was no threat to the school. A lockdown was lifted at 11 a.m. The district said additional supervision will remain on campus as needed to support students and staff. And so one of the things that makes this story all the more frustrating is, how do you deal with a bully? How do you deal with someone who is verbally or physically trying to assault you? Because verbal bullying and physical bullying does occur in the system. And what can you do? Well, oftentimes today, people's main objective or their go-to protection is to be violent. Hey, I'm going to choke someone to death. Hey, I'm going to stab someone to death. Obviously, we don't know what led to this altercation, but there are things that you can do to protect yourself in the event that something were to jump off, as it were, in connection with safety in school. For one, avoid being alone in unsafe areas and situations. Sometimes it's just better to just walk away from the situation if things look like they're getting tense versus putting yourself in an environment where you are just there with another person. Number two, remain aware of your surroundings when in public. That's really important. Sometimes there's TikTok videos of husbands being what quote overprotective or aware like a spy. But no, we have to make sure we are viewing the situation realistically, because if something jumps off, we want to be able to make sure we protect those in whom we love. Number three, do not get involved in arguments that do not concern you. That is like the high school foundation. When someone is being picked on, someone is saying something about someone else, gossip ensues. The first thing is, I want to get some of that. But that can lead to problem. That can lead to unnecessary challenges or lead to unnecessary things that would not have happened if one's person would have just handled their business without getting involved. It's really simple as that. Really simple as that. Number four, leave the area if violence seems imminent, and stay away from crowds that assemble in connection with protests. Now, in the school system today, there are a lot of protests. There are a lot of people whom are gearing to do things against the student body. They have their opinions in connection with teen lifestyle and teen upbringing. And so avoid those protests, because 9 times out of 10, there are persons involved in the protests who are willing to express themselves without their verbal words. And our final point, never risk your life to protect your possessions. I can't emphasize that enough on this show. Sometimes we as students, or you as a student, may feel, hey, I just got these sneakers. Well, if you get killed, then you will just have lost those sneakers. Whatever it is that you may want to protect materially, let it go, because there's nothing more important than your life. This follow-up story: Brookwood High School stabbing, student recovering after surgery. According to a variety of sources, we're now dealing with Gwinnett County, Georgia. A stabbing at Brookwood High School in Snellville sent one student to the hospital and caused another student to be led away in handcuffs. Police officers swarmed the campus just after 10 a.m. Thursday after the student was found stabbed in a bathroom. Administrators were walking through the hall and they heard a commotion in the restroom. They went in and they found a student with several injuries to his body and looked as if he had been stabbed.
And I had just walked in, and then I saw somebody on the ground, and I was like, what had happened? He was like, I had just got stabbed. I had seen a bunch of people like grouped up around somebody. He just told us all, he was just like, just stay in the bathroom, don't leave.
Watson said. The suspect took off running from the school, officials say, but was caught about 35 minutes later in a nearby neighborhood. Police say a knife was recovered. Watson was unable to provide an update on the victim's condition, but did say that the school district is wishing him a speedy recovery. And we, too, are wishing you a speedy recovery in connection with this incident that occurred here in Brookwood. Now, these stories are very similar, interestingly enough. That one last story took place in La Puente, California, and now here we are in Gwinnett County, Georgia. The student is reported to have undergone surgery and is recovering at the hospital. He is expected to be there for a few days. Parents may be concerned as to why the campus was not placed on lockdown following the incident. Sources say from the school it was not a lockdown because within minutes of the incident, they had eyes of the potential suspect and were tracking him as he left the building, Watson said. The principal assured families in the new letter that the student accused of the attack is facing serious criminal charges and the maximum school disciplinary consequences. The principal also assured families that Brookwood High remains a safe place. For parents, that can be one of the most challenging things when you don't feel as though your student's school or your child's school is a safe place. That is something that will take time. That is something that's going to take effort for you to be able to understand as to what's going on with these matters and the best way to protect yourself should anything come up or should anything rise. Now, this next story, you'll find it to be of interest because sometimes students do things that just don't make sense. As a school bus driver myself, I have a lot of fun with my students. I really try to have the best time with my students to make them feel cared about as an individual and above all respected. But of course, like anything else in life, there are rules, there are standards that I'm just not going to get involved in when it comes to stupidity. And this story is pure stupidity. Like this kid is off the hook. I've seen the hook, and this kid is definitely off of it. Georgia middle school student airlifted to hospital after jumping out back of moving bus. This is Bullitt County, Georgia. A Georgia middle school student was injured after jumping out of the back door of a moving school bus on Thursday, according to district officials. On Thursday, a Bullitt County middle school student fell from the back door of a moving bus that was traveling west on Veterans Parkway. Law enforcement, district staff, and medical personnel all responded to the scene. The student was airlifted to Savannah. The child's condition has not yet been released. A separate bus took the remaining children from the scene of the accident. The district said it will review the bus's surveillance video. Those who were on the bus indicated that the student opened the back door of the bus, according to the district. Nothing further in connection with this very unique story. Some people may say serves you right. I'm not going to go that far. Kids will do crazy things, dare I say stupid things. But there are just some things that kids should already know on the level of common sense that if you jump out of a moving bus, you're going to have problems. Students need to be aware that if they do stupid things, sometimes there's going to be stupid results. Now, as a bus driver, if that happened to one of my students, I would be enraged. I would be furious. But it goes to show you just how much lack of discipline there can be in the life of some of these students. We don't know exactly what happened. Maybe he just wanted to see if the door worked. But there is something that it brings to mind in connection with this week's episode. Why it's important to teach your children to read. Why it's important to teach your children to read. Well, for one, reading stirs the imagination. 2, reading builds character. 3, reading promotes deep thinking. So how can you encourage your child to pick up reading, and why is that important? How does that tie to this story? because reading allows a child to be able to reason a lot better than just to be sporadic in connection with choices that they make. One of the things that reading also does is it limits the amount of time a child would spend on social media. Notice this here. A father named Daniel recommends having a device-free evening. He says even if it was just one night a week, we would have a quiet evening with no TV. We would take time to read, whether together or separately. And so reading is going to build characteristics in a child that you just can't simply get from TikTok. You just can't simply get from social media. And so when a child is able to develop thinking ability early on in life, then it can prevent so many other consequences that could be dire to one's life, health, and very existence. Oftentimes in the family arrangement, we have circumstances that develop that might be beyond the control of a child. The family institution today is indeed under attack. Some families consist of no mothers. Some families consist of no fathers. Some families have no structure. Some families have no discipline. Some families have no love, no natural affection. When you rip that away from the home environment, you are creating a formula or an agenda for the child or children being raised in that particular household. And when that agenda is created, notice what happens in this next story. Family member charged after student brings loaded gun to elementary school. This is Richmond, Virginia. Richmond Police Department investigators have charged a student's family member after the student brought a loaded gun to an elementary school last week. At approximately 2:56 p.m. on Tuesday, February the 20th, officers were called to Oak Grove Elementary School for the report of a firearm on school property. Officers arrived and staff at the school reported they were made aware of a juvenile student who had a gun in the school. Officers were able to recover the weapon, finding it was loaded. Officials say nobody was hurt. Police and RPS could not confirm the age of the student, but parents and community members said it was a second grader. No one realized the student had the gun until the end of the school day when peers alerted staff at school. On February the 28th, investigators charged the student's family member, Cornelius Robinson, 59, of Richmond, with contributing to the delinquency of a minor. If there's any further information that you guys want to share in connection with this story, Crime Stoppers would like to have it at 804-780-1000. Some people will say that this person deserves to be charged with this particular story. And this is definitely one of those stories where you can't just cover it with, accidents will happen or the boys will be boys method. The sad thing about this story is that the child, second grade, let's put him at about, I would say 7, 8 years old, 9 at best. I think between 7 and 8 for second grade. It's hard to keep up sometimes, but it's unacceptable. Where did the child get the gun? Imagine what he could have done. Today in this episode, we talked a lot about physical or sexual abuse of a child, but there's also trauma even from mental abuse. There are decisions that we as adults make. Earlier in this episode, we talked about how a sexual abuse and physical abuse can affect a child in connection with predators. But there are forms of mental abuse that children are struggling to deal with each and every day. And we all make mistakes. We all as adults make mistakes. But if we don't stop to think carefully in connection with the life of a child and the circumstances surrounding a child's life that we may be involved in, then the consequences could be dire. And that is devastating, because this child never had a chance even before they started on their journey of life. Now, this next story, it really tugs the heartstrings. And of course, as always, the podcast family of R.E.D. wishes the families of this dear victim our deepest condolences. We want to express our warm love for you. And those are not just empty words. We want to wish you and your family our deepest and most heartfelt condolences. We genuinely love you and care deeply about you in connection with this story. The R.E.D. family, we're not exempt, nor are we immune, nor are we estranged from death or the loss of a loved one. So this story, each story that we cover in which a child meets an untimely end, it does pull us in a direction that it may not pull the average individual. Gaston County Middle School student collapses on bus, passes away. Gaston County, North Carolina. The Holbrook Middle School community in Lowell is in mourning following the sudden loss of one of their students on Thursday. Authorities said a middle school student was found unresponsive on a school bus as the vehicle arrived at school on Thursday morning, February 29th. A Lowell police school resource officer working at the school attempted life-saving efforts on the child before they were rushed to Caramount Regional Medical Center. Emergency personnel worked to save the child, but their efforts were unsuccessful. The child's name will not be released at this time, according to authorities. The Gaston County Police Criminal Investigations Unit is assisting Lowell Police in determining what occurred leading up to the child's death. At this point, police do not expect any charges to be filed. They are waiting on the final results from the medical examiner, but it appears that the child suffered from a medical condition, and so that would confirm as to why no one is being charged. Stories like this, it makes you wonder why. Some persons become bitter, they become enraged when the life of a child is lost. Some people believe that God took them as an angel. Some people believe in so many different things in connection with life and death, living and moving on, and the soul. But one thing that can really be a source of comfort is no matter what you believe, no matter what's close to your heart, as long as it's something that can to help you to remember your loved one, that can help you to continue to grow from this experience, that will help you to benefit in the long run. Now, how can you benefit from grief? Someone will say, because the person is not lost. Just because a person has passed away, and this is especially for you teenagers, when you lose someone, we take that literally. I lost this person. They're gone forever. Well, they're not gone. Everything that they stood for, everything that you learned from them, all the moments and memories you created with them, no matter how large, how many, how few, they are going to fuel you and keep you going. And truth be told, that's what keeps me going in connection with my younger brother. You never think that your younger sibling would pass away before you. But when I lost my brother a couple of years ago, there was this road that I had to come to terms with, two directions. And so I decided that I didn't have to walk in two directions. I didn't have to deal with the life of forgetting him or moving on without him, but rather I keep him with me in many places, through memories, through his son, his children that are alive, his son and daughter, and just being able to reminisce on how his life while he was alive affected me, moved me to be the person that I am today, and to bring this podcast to you. And so for that, I can be truly grateful to my younger brother. Keep on trying, guys. Keep on striving, and you will find success throughout these tragedies. We love you dearly from the R.E.D. podcast. This next story just transitions. High school students killed in Orange County crash. 2 high school students died Thursday night in a crash in Orange County. According to the State Highway Patrol, troopers around 9:30 p.m. responded to a crash on Oak Grove Church Road near Chipmunk Lane. Officials said a Subaru was traveling north on Oak Grove Church Road when it went off the road to the right, re-entered the roadway, crossed the center line, traveled off the road to the left, and struck a tree, catching fire. 2 people inside the car, identified as students at Southeast Alamance High School, died. The Alamance Burlington school system released the following statement: "We send our love and support to the families, friends, and our staff as they process this heartbreaking news. Extra support staff are on hand in our schools to assist students and staff today and this week as needed." The crash is under investigation, including what caused the driver to lose control. Oak Grove Church Road was closed for approximately 3 hours during this investigation, and the troopers cleared this scene at 12:12 a.m. To the family of those students that were lost in this accident, we echo everything that was said in the previous story, that we love you and we want to express our condolences. You may not want to hear the I'm sorries and we apologize for your loss and things of that nature that people normally don't want to hear during grief, but accept the comfort from well-meaning friends and family when you are ready, and try not to blame yourself for these tragic losses, because when you do, you only hinder the grief process. And it is a road that has to be traveled. It's a process that at some point all of us are going to meet and have to travel. Here's our next story. Student facing charges after stolen gun found at Tanglewood Middle. This is Greenville, South Carolina now. The Greenville County Sheriff's Office said a teen is in custody after a gun was found in his possession at a school on Thursday morning. Viewers reached out, according to the Carolina News, about a law enforcement presence around Tanglewood Middle School on Merrywoods Drive. Now, according to the Sheriff's Office, around 9 a.m., a school resource officer at Tanglewood School was made aware that an anonymous tip came through the See Something, Say Something tip line, providing information that a student was in possession of a gun. Law enforcement and school staff made contact with the student, and a stolen and unloaded gun was found in his backpack. Deputies said they have not received any information that any threats were made. The motive for why the student was in possession of a gun is not immediately clear. The sheriff's office said the 15-year-old student is facing charges for possessing a firearm on school grounds and will be taken to the juvenile detention facility in Columbia. Greenville County Schools said the student will be recommended for expulsion in accordance with the district's behavior code. Greenville County Sheriff Hobart Lewis said everyone is safe and no one was hurt during this particular incident. Now, here's the comment from the district. Please remind your child that if they see or hear anything concerning, they should report it immediately to an adult or by using the See Something, Say Something icon on their Chromebook. End of quote. So in this story, I'm not going to say that what this child is going to be subjected to as far as the expulsion is wrong. But what I am going to say is that how is that going to help this child develop or to reason out of making choices like this? Because that is just the mentality for certain things today. If you don't like something, throw it in the garbage. Oh, that tastes bad. Let's not see if we can make it taste better. Let's just throw it away and then make life easier for ourselves. Children today, children in general, are at a vulnerable stage and they need support. They need role models. They need someone to say it's okay to make mistakes. Now, of course, we are dealing with a large circumstance here. This boy could have killed someone, and that's rightly so, and there are consequences for that. No one's saying that there shouldn't be consequences. But what we are saying is that if you would take time to talk to this young man, you might be able to discover some hidden truth. Like perhaps he's being bullied by someone, and that's why he felt as though he needed this gun for protection. You know, back in the day, one thing I really miss from TV was the educational process and how they tied in real life with TV. The Jamie Foxx Show, Family Matters, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, episodes that dealt with gun violence and what to do if your friend is involved in drugs. Now, because those things have become the norm, persons have reasoned that the children just don't need those lessons anymore. Well, they do. And in fact, they need them a lot more than ever because they just may not know. In some cases, they just may have their backs pressed to that wall and no one is there to help them, and they're going to do what they think is best according to the circumstances. We hope that this matter is dealt with in a tactful way so that this young person can get the assistance that they need. This next story, again, dealing with bus driving drama, and I'm going to tell you guys, I've never had anything like this happen. The most intense accident I've had as a bus driver, school bus driver that is a woman running into the back of my bus at a red light. And the police came, gave all my kids coloring books, and it was an interesting day. But other than that, this next story, it's never happened to me. Bus driver arrested in crash with car in North Bellport, and the images are gruesome in connection with this particular bus. Bus driver arrested in crash with car in North Bellport. We're going now into North Bellport, Long Island. A school bus driver was arrested on Wednesday after being involved in a crash with a car in North Bellport, Suffolk police say. The bus driver, 64-year-old Stephen Edwards, was transporting 5 children ages 10 to 14 and an aide to Victory Station Academy when he crashed on Bellport Avenue and Head of the Neck Road at 7:50 a.m. With heavy front end damage, Suffolk County police say everyone, including an aide, were okay and transported to local hospitals. But Edwards was removed from the bus and refused to allow medical personnel to evaluate the children aboard the bus, and also became involved in an altercation with police at the scene. Edwards was arrested and was charged with 5 counts of endangering the welfare of a child and 2 counts of obstruction of governmental administration, harassment, and resisting arrest. It is not clear what the emotional state Edwards was in at the time of the crash. He was issued a desk appearance ticket. Now, personally, I don't know as to what this bus driver was on, because DOT plays no games in connection with some of the things that we have to deal with as drivers. I know my DOT is straight, my DOT medical card, so this doesn't really add up. But what also could have been the case is when you're dealing with these bus drivers who are older persons, and persons are feeling as though people say, oh, they need to make adjustments in the law for older bus drivers, those 70 plus, etc. That can kind of happen. This bus driver seems as though there might have been something going on, but there's no proof of that. And he wasn't as old as, I mean, things like that can happen at any age, but still, it's just crazy, to say the least, as to what this man decided to do. I mean, not letting the kids be checked on, like that's just a totally different concept of being a bus driver. But we hope that they're able to resolve the issue, and we're glad that everyone was taken to the hospital so that they can recover. In our next story, it reminds me again of something that happened to me in school. 8th grade history teacher, never forget, his name was Mr. Hornacek. And he used to say things like, everyone's going to close their mouth in 3. Rashon's going to close his in 2. 1. I don't know why he would single me out. I was pretty much a piece of work in 8th grade, but we're not even going to go there right now. So anyways, in this story, the teacher does what my history teacher did. He brings in a sword, a real sword, and we try it. We play with the sword, and it's heavy. This heavy sword for our history lesson. He's like, "Oh, be careful. You don't want to hit the light and raise it up and get electrocuted." So I can understand what he was thinking, but this science teacher, I'm not sure as to what she was thinking. Teen sues high school after science teacher brings swords to class and instructs students to fight. A New Mexico school, its vice principal, and a teacher there are the subjects of a lawsuit alleging that the teacher brought real swords into her science classroom and instructed students to fight with them, causing one student to become badly injured. The lawsuit is being brought on behalf of the student, identified only as NS by her grandparents and permanent guardians, Arnold and Judy Gachupin. According to the lawsuit, which was filed on February 23rd, NS was a 16-year-old sophomore at Albuquerque Public Schools, Volcano Vista High School at the time. The incident began when the teacher, identified in the lawsuit as Loviata Mitchell, brought 2 swords into the school on May 2nd, 2022. She allegedly hid them from students, security staff, and other school personnel until the class that NS was in. At that point, Mitchell allegedly announced that she had a surprise for her students, according to the lawsuit, and revealed the 2 swords. One was a katana-style sword with a long curved blade and sharp edge, according to the lawsuit, and the second was a rapier-style sword. Mitchell, according to the lawsuit, told the students the swords were props. After bringing out the weapons, Mitchell allegedly instructed the students to rearrange their desk and create a space in the middle of the classroom for pairs of students to fight. The fights were timed with a 2-minute timer displayed on the classroom's projector and filmed and photographed by other students, including NS. Video footage of the fights were included in the lawsuit and shows Miss Mitchell looking on approvingly. Mitchell had no certifications or experience in sword fighting, the lawsuit said. NS was then called to fight, but shortly after the bout began, she was struck across her right forearm, wrist, and hand by the katana-style sword, causing a large and deep laceration that began to bleed profusely, according to the lawsuit. Mitchell allegedly stated, "I'm in trouble," after the injury occurred, and ordered students to delete video recordings of the fight and not to tell anyone about them. Mitchell also allegedly delayed calling for help. NS's grandfather was contacted about 20 minutes after the injury was sustained, and because Mitchell could not figure out how to dial the nurse's office, it wasn't until NS began to feel nauseous and weak from blood loss that another student left the room to get medical assistance. About 30 minutes after NS was cut, 911 was called and NS was brought to the hospital. The lawsuit described the injury as a gaping wound that resulted in injuries to nerves and tendons in NS's dominant hand. The nerves and tendons remain damaged despite surgery on the area and cause ongoing pain daily, according to the lawsuit, and makes it difficult or impossible for NS to perform many basic daily tasks, including preparing for food, fastening buttons, zippers, and more. Preparing food. She continues to undergo occupational and physical therapy, the lawsuit said, but her dominant hand remains significantly weaker than her non-dominant hand. The lawsuit also alleges that the school attempted to cover up the incident with the assistant principal, identified as Manuel Alzaga, filling out an official accident report that described the swords as props brought in to teach students a lesson on metal and melding. The incident report noted that NS had been injured, but said that the injury did not violate school rules, despite the school and state both prohibiting deadly weapons, which would include swords, from being brought onto school campuses. The lawsuit argued that this was an attempt to deflect liability away from Mitchell. So this story was just one of epic proportion. It's filled with irresponsibility, it's filled with stupidity, it's filled with child endangerment, and that's exactly what I mean in connection with what we discussed earlier in this episode about avoiding circumstances that just look shady. The saddest thing about this particular story is that this could have been prevented with a little bit of street smarts. Anytime your teacher brings a sword into the building, you talk to someone, you get someone, you forget trying to be cool for 5 seconds. Not saying that NS was trying to be cool, but really reason out the choices that you're about to make, because this lawsuit can go either way. And so when you use common sense and you get up out of these situations that can cause you harm and damage, you don't put yourself into the mercy of the court, because sometimes things don't always work out the way people would like to. Our final story tonight, guys, is on a bit of a sad note. Game official collapses, dies during high school basketball game in Watertown. Don McGillicuddy collapsed in the final seconds of the Watertown Old Rochester Regional Girls Basketball game Friday night, officials said. A game official collapsed and died during a girls' basketball game at Watertown Middle School Friday night, school officials said. The official, whom was identified as 56-year-old Don McGillicuddy, collapsed in the final seconds of the Watertown Old Rochester Regional Girls Basketball game Friday night. A Watertown Public School spokesperson confirmed in a statement. Staff and students left the gym while a Watertown athletic trainer, officers from the Watertown Police Department, and community members attempted to help McGillicuddy. The Massachusetts Interscholastic Athlete Association confirmed to Boston that McGillicuddy was taken to a nearby hospital where he later died. The boys' basketball game between Watertown and Shawsheen Tech was rescheduled to Saturday after the incident, the district said in its closing statement. Well, we want to express our deepest condolences to the families of Don McGillicuddy. We really can't prepare to lose someone, but when these things do happen, we can take the steps to rebuild, as was echoed throughout this entire episode number 27. We wish you guys all the best, and we express our deepest love and condolences in connection with this story. It has been a wonderful episode, bringing you stories that can move you, captivate you, help you to learn lessons that can fortify you for the future, and help you to become an overall better person. This podcast is always going to be here for you guys as you struggle to make a success of life in the school system. Continue to reach out, continue to comment on these stories, and express your feelings and emotions, because they are always going to be safe as long as you keep this red light running, burning, and shining for each and every one of you. As always, guys, I'm Rashon Junior, your host, and this has been R.E.D. It's the Everyday Podcast for the Everyday People. Peace out.